It was supposed to be just another quiet dinner, a father and daughter sharing a meal at a cozy restaurant in the heart of the city. Nothing out of the ordinary. But for Nathan Cole, a billionaire tech mogul known more for his boardroom presence than his parenting skills, this night would become unforgettable. Wearing his usual tailored suit and a distracted expression, he barely noticed the way his 10-year-old daughter, Lily, kept glancing up at him with something on her mind. The waiter brought their food, and the clinking of cutlery filled the brief silence between them. Then, right as he reached for his glass of water, she said it. One sentence, just 5 words, and everything in Nathan's world shifted. Nathan was a man who could control the direction of global markets, make headlines with a single tweet, and close million-dollar deals before breakfast. But the one thing he couldn't seem to figure out was how to be a father. Since Lily's mother passed away 3 years ago, he'd buried himself in work, believing that providing for her meant getting her everything money could buy. Private schools, expensive gifts, nannies, the best of everything, except his time. To the world, he looked like the perfect single dad. But behind closed doors, there were missed school plays, unanswered questions, and too many nights spent alone by a little girl who only wanted her dad. Lily had always been quiet, a thoughtful soul with eyes far older than her age. She had spent enough time watching people to understand things others missed. And tonight, she had decided it was time to speak up. What she said at that dinner table wasn't rude. It wasn't loud, but it cut deeper than anything Nathan had ever heard. A simple truth, spoken softly, but with the weight of 1,000 unsaid words behind it. He froze. The room around him kept moving. Waiters weaving between tables, other families laughing, forks scraping plates. But for Nathan, time slowed down. His fork hung in midair. His throat tightened. And suddenly, he realized he didn't know what to say. Or maybe he did, but the words just wouldn't come. What did Lily say that left a billionaire speechless? And why was this the moment that changed everything for both of them? Keep watching to find out. The words Lily had spoken still echoed in Nathan's mind. Asterisk, Dad, do you even know me? Asterisk, it wasn't angry. It wasn't accusing. But it was honest. Too honest for a child that young. Nathan stared at her, stunned. For the first time in a long time, he didn't have an answer. The man who could solve global problems with a team of experts couldn't even respond to his own daughter. He looked at her more closely now. Really looked. She was growing up faster than he realized. Her long brown hair was tied in a messy braid, and she wore the hoodie he'd bought her from Paris. One of many gifts he'd sent through assistance. But what stood out most was her expression. Calm, but sad, like she'd been carrying this question for a long time. Nathan tried to speak, but his voice caught. He wasn't used to being caught off guard. He'd spent years building an empire from nothing, working 16-hour days, climbing every ladder he could find. After his wife died, he told himself staying busy was how he'd cope. How he'd protect Lily. But maybe somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing her as the little girl who used to wait up just to hug him goodnight. Maybe he thought love could be replaced with comfort. That being there didn't matter as long as everything else was perfect. Lily picked at her fries quietly, letting the silence settle between them. She wasn't trying to be dramatic. She wasn't even expecting a big moment. She just needed to say it, needed her dad to hear her. Because all the designer clothes, birthday parties, and drivers waiting outside the gate didn't change the fact that she felt invisible. And all she wanted was for him to know her. To really know her. Her favorite color. Her best friend's name. What she was afraid of. What made her happy. Nathan felt a weight pressing on his chest. This wasn't something he could fix with money. There was no investor meeting. No press release, no donation that could undo what he'd missed. His heart pounded as he looked around the restaurant, families laughing, kids talking to their parents about their day. For the first time, he felt like an outsider in his own daughter's life. But why now? Why this sentence? And what was Lily truly trying to tell him beyond those 5 words? What he didn't know yet was that this wasn't just about dinner. This was about something bigger, something she hadn't told him, something that would shake his world even more. Nathan sat back in his chair, his appetite gone. Across the table, Lily continued eating like nothing had happened, but her words lingered in the air between them, heavier than anything he'd faced in a boardroom. "Do you even know me?" It wasn't just a question, it was a quiet cry for connection. And the truth was, he didn't know. Not really. He knew her birthday, her allergies, the name of her school. But her favorite subject, what books she liked, what she dreamed about at night, that was all a blur. He realized he hadn't asked. Or maybe he just hadn't listened. Back at home, things had always moved on autopilot. The housekeepers kept the place spotless. The chef made Lily's lunches. A driver picked her up. And when Nathan was home, usually late, he'd peek into her room, whisper goodnight, and promise to talk more tomorrow. But tomorrow always came with meetings, travel, calls, and more excuses. He thought being a billionaire father meant giving her every advantage, but now he was seeing the cost. Meanwhile, Lily had her own world, one he knew nothing about. Her sketchbooks were filled with drawings he'd never seen. She wrote letters she never sent. She had a journal full of thoughts too big for her age. At school, teachers praised her intelligence but worried about how quiet she'd become. Her best friend, Emma, once said Lily talked like an adult trapped in a kid's body. And now Nathan was realizing why. There was another layer to it all, something deeper. Lily had overheard things, phone calls, whispered conversations between adults, mentions of moving, of selling one of Nathan's companies, of changes. She wasn't just feeling ignored. She was afraid. Afraid her father was about to make another big decision without her. Afraid she'd lose more than just time with him. She'd already lost her mom. Now it felt like her dad was slowly disappearing too, right in front of her. Nathan hadn't told Lily yet, but he was considering relocating to Singapore for a merger. 6 months, maybe longer. Another deal, another expansion. But now he wasn't so sure. Her question kept ringing in his ears. "Do you even know me?" And now another question started forming inside him. Had he already lost her without even realizing it? And still, Lily hadn't told him everything. There was something else. Something she was scared to bring up. Something that could change everything. The drive home that night was quieter than usual. Nathan kept glancing at Lily in the rearview mirror, hoping she might say something more, anything that would help him understand what was really going on. But she just stared out the window, her face calm, hiding whatever storm was inside. The city lights blurred past them, but inside the car, time felt frozen. Nathan's mind raced through memories, trying to find the moment he started drifting from her. Maybe it wasn't one moment. Maybe it was all the little ones he missed. At home, Lily went straight to her room without a word. Nathan stood in the hallway, unsure of whether to follow or give her space. He hadn't felt this helpless in years, not in meetings with CEOs, not when stocks crashed, not even at his wife's funeral. But this was different. This was his daughter, and something was breaking that he couldn't afford to lose. Later that night, Nathan stood outside her door, just listening. He could hear the soft scratch of her pencil. She was drawing again. He remembered once, years ago, she'd shown him a picture she made of their family, him, her, and her mom. Back then, he had smiled, patted her head, and returned to his phone. Now, he wondered what her drawings looked like when he wasn't in them. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. Flight to Singapore confirmed for Monday. Meeting rescheduled. Legal team will send over the documents. He stared at the screen. Monday, 4 days away. He hadn't told Lily yet. He hadn't even decided for sure. But the deal was massive. Everyone was counting on him. The shareholders, the partners, the board. But now, he wasn't sure who he was doing all of this for. As he stood there, torn between the life he built and the daughter waiting silently behind that door, he heard something. A soft sniff. Then another. He knocked gently. No answer. He pushed the door open. Lily was sitting on the floor, surrounded by drawings, some crumpled, others neatly lined up. But the one in her lap froze him in place. It was a picture of a man in a suit, walking away from a little girl standing alone at a gate. Her name was written in the corner. So was the date. And below it, in shaky handwriting, asterisk, please don't go again. Asterisk. Nathan's heart dropped. And then Lily looked up, her eyes red but steady. Dad, there's something else I need to tell you. Nathan stepped into the room slowly, unsure of what to say. The drawing in Lily's lap had already torn open something inside him, but now, hearing her say there was more, something else she hadn't told him, sent a cold rush through his chest. He knelt beside her, gently placing a hand on the carpet, careful not to touch the scattered papers she had poured her heart into. Lily didn't cry. She just looked at him, her voice soft but clear. I didn't want to make you upset, she said, but I didn't know who else to tell. Nathan swallowed hard. You can tell me anything, he said, though the words felt too late. Lily hesitated, her fingers curling around the edge of the drawing in her lap. I got into the art academy, the one in New York. They offered me a spot for next semester. But I didn't tell you because, she looked down, her voice cracking just a little, because I didn't think you'd care, or that you'd be here. The room seemed to tilt. Nathan felt the floor beneath him, but everything else spun. An elite art academy, in New York. She'd applied on her own, gone through everything without him. How had he missed this? How had she gone through such a big moment in her life without even thinking to share it with her father? His silence stretched, and Lily quickly added, It's okay if you don't want me to go. I just wanted to try. I thought maybe it'd make you proud, or that maybe you'd come with me. That last part hit him harder than anything she'd said all night. She didn't just want his approval. She wanted him, not the billionaire, not the CEO, just her dad. And in return, she was offering him something no one else had in years, an invitation to be part of her world. But New York meant change. It meant pulling out of the Singapore deal, canceling flights, possibly losing the trust of people who saw him as untouchable. It meant saying no to everything he'd worked for. And now it meant saying yes to something he hadn't dared to prioritize: fatherhood. Before he could answer, Lily stood and walked to her closet. She pulled out a folder and handed it to him. There's something else in here, she whispered. Something I found out about Mom. Nathan's hands trembled as he opened it. What he saw made the air leave his lungs. And suddenly, everything he thought he knew about the past and the woman he lost was about to change. Nathan opened the folder slowly, his breath shallow. Inside were a few yellowed documents, old photographs, and a letter, folded neatly, with his name written on the front in familiar handwriting. His chest tightened. It was her handwriting. His late wife's. He hadn't seen it in years. His fingers trembled as he unfolded the letter. Lily stood quietly, watching him. She hadn't read the letter. She had only found it hidden in a keepsake box, tucked beneath layers of old photo albums in the attic. Her mother must have left it there for him. Something meant to be found, one day when it mattered most. Nathan began to read. The letter was dated just weeks before his wife passed. In it, she spoke about Lily, about how she knew Nathan would get lost in work again, trying to fill the void. She begged him not to forget what mattered, not to let grief become distance. She wrote about Lily's love for art, how gifted she was, and how Nathan needed to show up, not just in body, but in heart. And then came the part that shook him to his core. I never told you this, the letter read, but I declined a major gallery deal in New York. They wanted me, but I chose us. I chose Lily. I want you to remember that sometimes the right choice doesn't make sense to anyone else. It just feels right. Nathan sat back, overwhelmed. His wife had given up her dream to stay close, to raise Lily, to hold their family together. And now, years later, Lily was standing in front of him, asking him to do the same. I'll go to New York with you, he said suddenly, voice shaking. If you still want me to. Lily's eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. For the first time in years, she smiled, not the polite smile she gave strangers, but the real one. But just as the relief began to settle in, Nathan's phone buzzed again. A news alert. He almost ignored it, but something caught his eye. A headline. Asterisk. Whistleblower exposes fraud in billionaire Cole's company. Federal investigation launched. Asterisk. Nathan's face went pale. The Singapore deal. The investors. Someone from inside had leaked something. He looked at Lily, who was still clutching her sketchbook. He had just chosen her over everything. But now he wasn't sure if there'd be anything left to walk away from. Nathan stared at the screen, the headline burning into his mind. For a moment, the weight of everything came crashing down. Years of work, reputation, power, all hanging by a thread. But then he looked back at Lily. Her small hands still clutched her sketchbook like it was the only thing that truly mattered. And in that moment he knew. Whatever storm was coming, he wouldn't face it the way he used to, alone, buried in meetings and silence. This time, he'd stand in it with his daughter beside him. The next morning he made the calls. To his board, his legal team, his assistant. He told them he wouldn't be going to Singapore. He told them he needed to take time, real time, for his family. Some were shocked. Others disappointed. A few even threatened to pull support. But for the first time, Nathan didn't care. His entire empire was built on precision and control. But this part of his life couldn't be managed with spreadsheets or strategy. It had to be lived. He walked Lily to school that morning, something he hadn't done in years. They talked the whole way. About her art, her favorite movies, the friend who always stole her crayons. And he listened, not with half an ear while checking his phone, but fully, like each word mattered. Because now he knew they did. Weeks passed. The investigation into his company grew louder, but Nathan stayed grounded. He faced it all head-on, cooperating fully. Some assets were frozen. Plans were delayed. The media buzzed with speculation. But through it all, he stayed by Lily's side. They moved into a small apartment in New York, not far from the art academy. No private drivers, no assistants, just the two of them learning how to be a family again. Lily started classes that fall. Nathan sat in the front row at her first exhibit, surrounded by strangers who saw talent in his daughter before he ever truly did. And as she spoke to the crowd, introducing her work, he realized she wasn't the quiet little girl anymore. She was becoming someone bold, someone brave. He didn't rebuild his empire, not in the same way, but he rebuilt something far more valuable. Trust, connection, a real relationship. And years later, when people asked Lily how she found her voice as an artist, she always said, "The day my dad finally heard me."